I, 30M, want to try to move in with my girlfriend, 31F, but I don't know if it's worth pursuing. We've been dating a year and a half. Solid relationship. We've never even had to raise our voices or argue over anything. We also live separately, renting. I really want to propose. She's the one. But I've always felt that moving in together is an important step before marriage. We discussed it twice, with 1 month between the question, and both times she said the same thing: I think about it, but I'm not ready. I respect her boundaries and drop it. And here I am yet again. I want to move forward, but I don't want to pressure her. I've googled the topic, I know the statistics, but I still want cohabitation. Should I respectfully push the issue a little more, or should I keep waiting? Too long. Didn't read. I want to propose to my girlfriend, but while I want to live together first, she is holding off. I would bring up the fact that you are ready, if you haven't said so already, but also let her know that if she still isn't ready, then that's fine. You don't want to keep pushing it, as this could push her away / scare her. As you said, you think she's the one, so isn't it worth waiting for? People aren't ready for the same things at the same time, but as long as you're on the same page about wanting those things in the future, just wait it out. Also, if she isn't ready to move in, she is probably not ready for a proposal. Rather than push on the question of moving in, you need to have an actual conversation. You should be able to have a conversation with her about what sort of timeline she sees herself on as far as moving in, getting married, etc. This isn't a conversation which is trying to pressure her, or impose any timeline. It's just, you want to get her to talk about what she sees the next few years of her life looking at. And you can ask her what sort of things she thinks she needs in order to move in. Again, not in an accusatory way, but in a getting to know you, trying to understand my partner better, sort of way. I would go so far as to say that the fact that you haven't had these conversations, that you don't seem to have the ability to talk about stuff like this, strongly suggests that you shouldn't move in. Sounds like you two need to have an open dialogue about timelines and how you see the relationship progressing. Living together before marriage shouldn't have to be a prerequisite. But if you really want that experience, what are you trying to gain from it, and could you start learning those things without fully moving in? For example, if you wanted to know if your living styles would clash, could you do a trial where you stay at her place for a few weeks, then she stays at your place for a few weeks? If you want to understand her financial values, can you have a Friday night where you both pop a bottle of wine, sit down, and discuss candidly finances? If her being not ready is code for I've never imagined myself cohabitating, then she may not ever get ready, and she just might compromise to make you happy. Would you want that? I think you should figure out what makes her not ready, and if it's due to value-based reasons or the relationship itself. If it's the latter, then you need to ask her what about the relationship needs improvement from her perspective, so you can work on that. Have a conversation with her. Ask her what needs to happen in order for her to be ready. Communication is really important. You should be able to talk about anything and everything openly with your partner. Highly recommend moving in together before marriage. Living together is a whole new playing field, and you really get to know someone for who they are. Better to do that before committing your life to them. Also, a little piece of me feels that if she isn't ready to move in together yet, she may not be ready for marriage yet. What are her reservations about living together? Would she have to leave her apartment to get one with you, or would one of you move in with the other? How compatible would you be as roommates? Do you both keep your places clean, or is one of you a slob? Do you have the same taste in furniture? Would one of you expect the other to carry more of the mental burden for maintaining the household? As a woman in her 30s, I would not really want to give up my freedom and move in with someone unless we were in it for the long haul. Would especially not move in with them if I got any sort of hint that I would be stuck with the majority of the housework after the move. Been there, done that, not interested in being a bangmaid again. We discussed it twice, with 1 month between the question, and both times she said the same thing: I think about it, but I'm not ready. Right? They had 2 discussions, and all he knows is I think about it, but I'm not ready. What does she think about it, and what does ready mean to her? If the 2 of them can't openly offer that information, him too, about his views on marriage and his timeline, which he definitely has, then they don't have a very strong relationship. How to divide rent with boyfriend when he gets an extra room to himself. So me and my boyfriend are moving to a 2-bedroom. The reason we got a 2-bedroom is because he does music and has been wanting a good setup for that, and at our current 1-bedroom apartment it took up almost our whole living room and our biggest closet. It felt unfair to me as we were splitting rent and I had no space to put my stuff and he didn't really want me to use his desk, so basically he had a desk and all his gear set up in our living room and I had no space with things that were just mine. So we were talking about how much more he should pay and we said maybe he can pay $200 more than me to have his own music room, but now that I think of it, it doesn't sound like a great deal for me since he has a lot of space and I will only have the bedroom for my stuff, which isn't much space at all, and the living room is tiny so that we'll just have our couch, TV set up, etc. The 2nd bedroom, his music room, is about a third of the whole apartment. It's a small apartment. How would you split the rent? I'm confused and need some advice. I just don't want to end up feeling resentful for him having much more space, but I also want to be reasonable. He makes about $500 more than me right now. Too long didn't read. Boyfriend and I are moving to a 2-bedroom, he gets his own room. How much more should he pay in rent? He should pay the difference in cost from the 1-bedroom to the 2-bedroom, plus his half of the original rent. If the 1-bedroom costs you $800 and the 2-bedroom costs $1,500, he should pay $1,100. Half the original $800, assuming you were splitting rent in half, $400, plus the $700 additional to rent the 2-bedroom. Edit, made up numbers. Do you split all your expenses? Utilities, groceries, car, gas, eating out, etc.? If so, then you might want to consider asking him to be more reasonable with the rent, or ask him to pick up utilities or another expense that would take some financial pressure off you. I bet they must split everything down to the cent. Precisely. You haven't mentioned how you split it now, but in general I tend to think splitting by income is more equitable. Don't think it's a bad thing to have spaces for your stuff. It sounds more like the issue is there isn't enough space for your extra stuff as well. Why aren't you looking for a place that has enough space for what both of you want/need? Well, I don't need that much space because I'm not trying to have a home recording studio. Also, we live in LA and rent is not cheap here. What is your primary goal? An equitable relationship by whatever compromise you can think of. Is your goal to pay less rent only? Do you want use of the room since you do pay for some of it? Think about what you'd be happy with before you talk to him. Situation 1. If he's using 100% of the room 100% of the time, then you should divide the rent by square footage used. As the user Krugel commented wisely. Situation 2. He let you store some of your stuff in his music room? You could go into the music room occasionally when you need your stuff, but besides that it would be used by him primarily. If you are able to use it for storage, then I'd say he wouldn't have to pay as much as he might in situation 1. But he should still pay more than you if he wants dibs on the room. This might be a good compromise if situation 1 is not feasible/desirable for both of you. Situation 3. Would he let you use the room for your hobbies too? He probably doesn't play music 24/7, right? So you could split the use of the room. In this case you would pay equal rent and both get equal use of the hobby room. Divide the square footage by the amount of rent. Then tally up the common areas of the total space to figure out the equal space. Then he pays for the footage of the room. My girlfriend, 24F, of about 4 years, and I, 25M, moving in together. We'd like to have routine relationship checkups. Any advice on what we should include in these checkups? First off, my girlfriend and I are doing awesome. We both agree that we have great communication, we support each other, we have lots of fun, and overall it's a nicely balanced relationship. We just want to have an intentional safe time where we can be completely open and honest with each other. It can be very easy to brush issues under the rug or just simply get too busy to talk about it, so we want to plan out a periodic, maybe monthly time where we meet to discuss such things. We're thinking things like, how are we both feeling in terms of physical, mental, spiritual well-being? How are we doing sticking to our financial budget? Anything that's been bothering you lately? What are some goals you want for ourselves as individuals and as a couple? I want to hear from my fellow Redditors. What do you think of these types of routine tag-ups? And what do you suggest we talk about during these discussions? Thank you and much love to you all. Too long didn't read. Do you find it beneficial to have routine discussions with your SO? What are the most important things to touch on during these discussions? The Gottman Institute, a relationship research group, recommend these, calling them State of the Union meetings. You can find articles seeing what they recommend on their website. I think routine check-ins can be really useful for some people. It can reduce the stress of saying/being told we need to talk, and for smaller issues it can be nice to know you have a time to bring them up that's not going to be taken negatively. Just knowing that can help put a pause on mild annoyance at something. I don't have a ton of experience with it, but I would recommend also including appreciation. And I told you this before, but I wanted to thank you again for noticing we were out of creamer and buying more even though I didn't put it on the list. It was really thoughtful of you to make sure I had what I wanted for my morning coffee. Can help take the sting out of please remember to make sure the freezer closes all the way. If bags shift it can pop it open and then things start to thaw. My fiance and I used to do this, now we're far more ad hoc, which works well for us at this time. One thing that we considered really important was a calendar review. What's coming up in the next month? Are there any events either one of us has missed mentioning to the other? Do we have at least one big fun thing to look forward to this month, and one small fun thing to look forward to this week? If not, let's book something. What is on our to-do list that we can affix to a date in the calendar? That said, we sometimes found that our meetings ran too long. Once you do a calendar review, then a budget review, suddenly you've spent your whole Saturday morning in a meeting. You're both hungry for lunch and you've both lost the energy for discussing the relationship bits. So definitely lean into the flow of what works for both of you. Maybe break it up. Instead of one monthly 2+ hour meeting, you set aside 30 minutes every Sunday morning for coffee plus meeting. First Sunday of the month is calendar review, second Sunday is budget review, third Sunday is relationship pulse check, fourth Sunday is fancy brunch date or something. My husband and I have one question we ask each other occasionally. Is there any way I could make you feel more loved? I know he loves me. He knows I love him. But making sure we're in sync with our love languages and whatnot is important. Like, I'd feel more loved if you joined me on my after dinner walks occasionally. Or I'd feel more loved if you kept your cell phone off during dinner. Etc etc etc, and be willing to hear those things and adjust accordingly. Our love isn't in dispute. We know we love each other, but making sure each other feels loved and appreciated is something good to maintain. We've been happily married nearly 7 years now, so we must be doing something right. It's worth discussing specifically how you both feel the housework is going. If not discussed, small house issues can become big resentments over time.